Hello, Orville Nation and Nerd TV and the Dark Matter Tribe. Hello, everybody. Welcome. Hello, Corey. Hello, Great Troll. Hello, Time Prophet. Linda. So many fandoms is all over the place. Hello, GapStargate. Good to see you. Hello, Jeff. Oh, I wish I could read your name. Yippee. Welcome, everybody. We have an amazing time for you tonight. We have the great honor of having the master of dark matter, Joe Mallozzi. It's going to be a very special night tonight, guys. And as we kick off Dark Matter Mondays, it's very exciting, guys. So I want to bring everybody together. I want to bring everybody on. I want to introduce our panel first and welcome everybody. And I do want to address really quickly one thing, guys. And thanks, Love Shack, for pointing this out. We are going to try to do this with no spoilers. If something it gets out, it gets out. But we're going to try to do it spoiler free. Some of you have watched all 3 seasons. Some I know probably maybe half of you have not. Half of you are kind of watching this, or at least have begun to watch it right now as we've initiated this rewatch. We will try to do it without spoilers. Yeah, we will try to do it. Great Troll. Yeah, you too. Thanks for pointing that out. Great Troll. And live at the Love Shack. We're going to try to do it without spoilers. If we let little things, if little things slip out, bear with us. Just ignore it. All right. I want to introduce our friend Katie, the meteorologist, the Starfleet meteorologist, of course. Katie, welcome. How are you, my friend? Good to see you.
Hey! Oh, I'm so great. I'm so excited for this.
And where are you today? Are you in your office?
I am. I'm in my new weather office. I moved apartments, so it's a whole new weather wall. It's the same as the old one.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I was just going to say, it doesn't look that different.
There's nothing different. I got a new weather globe, but that's it.
Oh, wow. Okay.
The exciting things.
As you guys all know, some of you may not know, Katie is a real life meteorologist and a storm chaser. And she's one of those crazy people who goes around with a camera and with her weather instruments in a car chasing tornadoes.
And I wouldn't want to do anything else.
So, wow. So you guys will, and Katie has a channel. It's called So Many Fandoms. And we will be posting links to that. And let me introduce our other co-host on the panel. You guys all know this gentleman as the science fiction author, Dr. Adega Outlaw. Welcome, Adega.
Hello, everybody.
Good to see you, my friend. And I want to remind everybody that Adega has, recently announced that he is going to be publishing his next 7 books.
Well, I hope so. We'll see how it goes. But It looks like I'm contracted for the whole thing, but you know, it all depends if they're good or not.
Well, I know they're good, so if one company doesn't do it, another one will. So, and I just want to remind everybody again who's coming in, we're going to try to do this without spoilers. So we're going to ask too that we're going to try to do it without spoilers, and if the chat, can you guys kind of just refrain from giving anything that might be related to down the road. And so we're going to try to talk about episode 1, season 1 of Dark Matter, and we're going to talk in general terms. And I think it's time to bring in the very honorable guest of the night, executive producer, co-creator, showrunner, Joe Mallozzi. Welcome, Joe.
I don't know about honorable, but I thank you. Thank you.
Thank you for doing this with us, Joe. This is such a privilege and such an honor. I think that it's for our Orville Nation community, it's really been a highlight of this channel. Thank you.
No, actually, my pleasure. And I think I mentioned it on our last discussion that the Orville and Dark Matter have a lot in common in terms of colorful characters, kind of a sense of humor, kind of it harkens back to the old sci-fi that I used to love watching as a kid.
Yeah, and as that we were discussing last time when we had you on, we were discussing that the involvement of comedic component to sci-fi, which is very true. Yeah, there's that in common with. Although it's different from the Orville, I think it's different, but it's not slapstick, but
it's different.
Well, watching a guy get rebounded off of his own weapon fire in this episode, that was pretty funny. I like that.
Pretty great.
That was funny. So let me ask, just to kick things off, Joe, can you set kind of the framework for what the universe is, what the time, like the date might be,
Sure.
Where are we when we and I know that these things are revealed as time goes on, but maybe it's a very general question if you want to answer it in the general way.
Yeah. So our series is set I think I said about 300 years into our future. Where corporations have actually gone out and seeded worlds. And so power rests in these corporations. And they're the power brokers in the galaxy. But overseeing the galaxy is a policing force known as a galactic authority. And so within this world, we meet our characters in episode 1.
Awesome. And are there, let me just make sure I have the right files here. And okay.
Did you have an estimate of how many worlds that these corporations have? I mean, it doesn't get revealed, but I just wasn't sure if there was a thought that you had in your head of the rest of the crew, how many you were going to be involved with.
Yeah, we actually remember generating a list of about a dozen corporations, and some are actually more powerful than others. So I would think that the major corporations could have dozens of worlds under their control. So I would say at least there are about 100 colonies out there.
Wow. And as far as the and I know this is a down the road question, and we don't want to talk spoilers, but can we ask you just really quick? Earth is referred to, not just Earth, but as referred to as Terra Prime.
Mm-hmm. Yes, it is.
Is there anything you can say about that in general terms?
Just in my mind, they went out and seeded these various worlds, and I mean, I think some people refer to it as Earth, but I think officially it's just referred to as Terra Prime, and there are, I believe, probably other Terras out there. Terra 2, Terra 3, Terra 4. But Earth is where it all began.
Okay. All right. So I think that we're gonna, let's see. Let me put up our first images. So we kind of kick off the first episode where they are waking up on the Raza, and they don't know it's on the Raza. Like that's one of the things in the episode in the first episode. They don't know where they are, what ship they're on, and the first couple of scenes we see is the character that that ends up being called One, waking up, and Two, waking up, and they are inevitably trying to establish some kind of control over the ship, and they end up in some kind of conflict to assume control of the bridge.
Yeah,
that hit looked like it hurt.
Yeah, you know what? Actually, John Steadwood, our stunt coordinator, is always very careful. He's really great, and Melissa, especially, who plays a role of Two, she's terrific. I mean, her and especially Alice Mallory Jr., who played Four, like just went all out in their stunt work. So much so that it's one thing I learned on Stargate is floors and ceilings are so key because you want to sort of create that sense of a real ship. So you want to establish real floors or floors with textures, floors with ceiling. And I remember Melissa coming up to me after shooting the scene and holding up her hand, and I don't know if she landed a certain way, but she had the imprint of one of the grates, the floor grates, embedded on her hand. I was just, and it looked like it hurt a little bit, kind of an injury, but that's what I mean. She would always go all out.
That's awesome.
Wow. And what was would you say the stunt coordinator's name again?
John Stead was our stunt coordinator, and he's a fantastic stunt coordinator, but he also directed our second unit. So essentially what that means is occasionally, if you don't have time to shoot the entire episode within the allotted time, you put together a splinter unit. Usually maybe it's a character or two characters in a nearby location, and you shoot them while the other scene is being shot. So he was our second unit director, and he did a terrific job, and we had a slot available in a later season 1, and he ended up, I offered it to him because he did such a good job with the second unit stuff. Very good at getting those character moments, but just getting the humor of the scene as well. And he did a bang up job. We'll talk about that episode when it comes. It was episode 10, I think. We'll get to it. Well, we'll figure it out. Yeah, there he is. There he is in action, the man. I mean, stunt coordinators are a breed all their own. I mean, I work with James Bamford on Stargate for many years. I don't know if you know James, but he's also a director now in the DC universe. Great guy, but truly a character. The same way that John is. John is when he's not stunt coordinating, he's being dropped off in the wilderness with a crossbow so that he can go hunt bears.
Wow.
I wish I was making this up, but it is true. That's what he does in his leisure time.
That's awesome.
Wow. It sounds like the kind of person who would go storm chasing with you, Katie.
That's exactly what I was thinking.
He would totally be up to that.
Cut from the same cloth.
Yeah. He did really good work for us. I mean, he ended up doing an episode every season, and his episodes always ranked as my absolute favorites. Really great stunt coordinator and a great director as well.
Did he also work with Four's sword work, or did he have somebody else to do that? Or
no, that was him. That was him as well. So I mean, he's he just covers it all, and it's amazing the way he can put these sequences together. And like I said, I mean, it just looks like chaos, but he's always very careful, and for him, safety is paramount. I mean, we got some really great fight sequences and stunt sequences in future episodes, and maybe I'll see what I can do about getting him to come aboard and one of these, and
that would be awesome.
Take us through some of these sequences and his work and maybe his bear hunting.
I think my favorite part of that entire clip is he is in a plaid shirt and jeans, just destroying everyone.
He's also, does he do any acting? Because he acts just like the droid.
It's funny. He doesn't really do any acting, except he had a cameo in, what was the Captain Marvel movie, the Shazam movie?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I remember being in theaters watching it. And there's a scene where a bus, I think, plummets off a bridge, and Captain Marvel saves the bridge, saves the bus, sets it down, and the passengers disembark, and he's like the last passenger to disembark.
I have to watch that again.
Yeah.
Now, Joe, is he's obviously been a stuntman. I'm sorry if you didn't catch if you said that he's been a stuntman himself.
Yes, he is. He is a stunt coordinator. Yeah.
Okay.
Cool.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, and there were. It was interesting because I was watching. I had been binge watching this, and I definitely remember recalling scenes between 2 and 4, mm-hmm. where it seemed to me like there was no stunt double at all. Like they were down the road.
Yeah, we do have stunt doubles for the more dangerous stuff, but Alex and Melissa especially were really up for pushing it and doing as much as they could.
Wow. Okay. Now in the going back to and it's just such a privilege to be walking through the episode and like this with Joe. And when we go back to that initial scene where 2 and 1 are, duking it out for control of the bridge, we see like this very little brief moment of possible, just a hint of possible attraction between them while they're fighting.
Yeah, well, I think more attraction on his part. She's kind of all business. She wants to sort of get him out of the way so she can restore power, and so there is that glimmer.
And exactly, she says exactly what you just said. You were in my way, right? Why didn't
I had to laugh at that, just because that is such a relatable feeling. Like some days you just gotta get out of my way. I'm doing my job.
And it just really perfectly sums up her character. It establishes who she is from the get-go. And so it's no surprise that ultimately she becomes the essentially their leader, their de facto leader.
Absolutely. Okay, I had a couple questions about because you've been recently on Twitter, you've been showing set and costume designs, a lot of them from Universe. Mm-hmm. And maybe that's for upcoming this weekend, some of the stuff you're going to be doing with that. But this was set in Canada, right?
Oh, we shot in Canada. Yeah.
Okay. The whole set, the image, who was the one who came up with the images and the design for the set, and how big was it? Because I'm always fascinated how a studio can make such small spaces look so large, because you go into the cargo bay and it looks huge. Yes. And then you're on the bridge, it looks big, in the hallway. It amazes me how you guys do this.
Yeah, it's all trickery, to be honest with you. Although our underbelly, there's a scene where 3 walks down and there's a huge double door, the vault, if you will. And that was actually a very big area. That was our underbelly that sadly we didn't get as much use out of that we really should have. But the rest of the ship, I mean, really the ship had one main corridor and it branched off not to much. We had, the quarters, which we would switch the positioning around, so the bed would face this way, or it was also obviously one quarters, but it would have a different look for each character. We had the bridge. The bridge was really where the money went, and we had the infirmary and our mess hall, which also doubled as Four's workout room. And so, it reminds me of when we were, I was working on Stargate, and we had the, what was the ship? The Daedalus. And we had this long walk and talk where two of the characters are walking down the corridor, then they take a left and they take a right. And you think, wow, how big is this ship? And you don't realize that they're actually just walking in circles. But, just the way they position everything and they kind of turn things around, it just seems to go on forever. And so that's really just the magic of television, just having a really great director. And, often we would just switch up not only the looks of the corridors, but sometimes, the corridors in the lower levels would have a darker lighting, while just the corridors in the upper levels would have kind of a signature, kind of more of a yellow lighting. So just, there's so many tricks that can be used to really, expand those standing sets.
Well, it was impressive.
Very impressive.
And we see here the introduction of 3, who shows up after they've gotten control of the ship. And I got to tell you, Joe, when I'm watching this, when I'm rewatching this, I'm so sorry, but there's just one thing that comes to mind when as I go back and analyze 3. I'm gonna just put up this image because this is what I see now every time I see 3, and it's kind of exaggerated maybe, but this is what I see. I see Tackleberry.
Well, it's funny because well, two things. One, what I love about sci-fi is I built my career on sci-fi, and so I know all the cliches, if you will, and the chestnuts. And what I set out to do in Dark Matter was to just establish these seeming established tropes and undermine them over the course of the show. So essentially, in the first episode, we don't know anything about these characters. So you got the swordsman, you got the brooding swordsman, you got the kind of kick-ass leader, you've got 3 who everyone's like, oh, it's just he's Jane from Firefly. And in the first 2 episodes, even actually very early on in the show, it's tough to get a beat on them beyond those surface impressions because they don't have a backstory to build on. So you're just, you have to sort of take these characters as what they are. And then as the show progresses, you begin to kind of undermine or subvert expectations. And it's funny you mentioned 3 because I was just thinking about this the other day, but I remember after the first 2 episodes aired, I think the first 2 episodes aired as kind of a back-to-back premiere. And of course, I went online, as I will often do, to check a fan reaction. And people were, pretty, positive about the show, but they were almost universal in the fact that they hated Anthony Lemke's character 3. They thought he was an asshole. They thought he was just like a Jane clone. They absolutely hated him. And I remember I was actually surprised by the amount of hate he got. And I remember going to Anthony and I was like, I think I may have done your character a disservice. I mean, writing him so bad. And Anthony absolutely loved it. And he was like, no, because the cast already had up to episode 9. So he knew where his character was going. He was like, no, this is amazing. And, it's kind of true. It's reminds me of this psychology course I took in college, where my psychology teacher told me that the best of friends make the worst of enemies, and the worst of enemies make the best of friends. And it's kind of like that here, where basically you start off hating a character, and then as you get to know them, your opinion changes. And it's amazing. It's a testament really to Anthony Lemke's performance that by the end of season 3, I mean, we would get these network audience surveys, and he was one of one of the favorite characters by
Kind of
far.
makes me think of
yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, that's it. I mean, I was just amazed that you went from hated to beloved.
He makes at the beginning. To me, he seemed like a angry, disgruntled brother of Han Solo. You know, it kind of had that feel.
I like that.
Well, this is I actually, for this, I'd never seen the show before. So I'm watching it as we go ahead and do these reviews. And I got to say, I'm in the boat of, he's just a jerk. So I'm glad that there's something to look forward to.
Yeah, well, let's revisit around season 3 and let me know what you think then.
I'm seeing a lot of people saying favorite character, absolutely love him. So we'll see. I'm excited.
How did they do, all the actors, with not having a background to their character?
Well, it was really interesting because on most productions you never have that many scripts. A lot of productions are fly by the seat of their pants. I know, while we were in production, I know other productions, for instance, were writing scripts the night before. Sometimes they would be writing outlines on scrambling to write outlines and. It just didn't make sense to me. One of the things I learned on Stargate is that preparation is key and just goes a long way towards ensuring that the money ends up on screen, and it's just easier for everyone. And so I made sure we had 9 out of 13 episodes before we went to camera. So even though they didn't have their character backstories, they had the episodes, and they kind of grew to know the characters as kind of things went along. And I know that, one of the big mysteries of the first season is, who wiped their memories, who's the mole. And they would come by my office and be like, in order to inform my performance, I think I really should know. And I'd be like, no. And in fact, there's a big reveal at the end of season 1 that I kept until the very last shot, or the last scene that was going to be shot. And Ivan Bartok, who was our co-executive producer, and he was on set, and he videotaped my reveal to the cast. So they didn't even know what was going to happen until just before they shot the scene. So that's another little goodie that I'll send your way when the time comes.
That's exciting for the whole production staff. Wow.
That's also brutal.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
But it's fun. I mean, I was on Stargate for 12 years, and I think I came up with the idea of dark matter, I want to say 2006 or 2007. I thought, okay, when Stargate Atlantis ends, we'll roll into dark matter. And of course, Atlantis got picked up, and then we went into universe, and then things were delayed. And so I had, like 6 or 7 years to sit on this series. And so I thought it actually turned out great because I worked out all the character backstories. I had like a 5-season game plan. I knew how each season would begin and end. I had answers to all the mysteries, so I wasn't making up things as I was going along. And one of the great things about that is that you're able to drop clues and hints as the episodes go along, where characters are like, "Oh, that doesn't make sense," or why did the character say that? And then there's a payoff later on. I mean, there's a look later in the season. It's just like a look one of the characters gives that basically just seems kind of weird, that pays off at the top of season 3. And I'll talk about that when we get to it. But that was the most fun about writing Dark Matter was the fact that I had like a huge I had a plan. It was thought out, so I could drop those clues and keep the audiences on their toes.
Joe, before I ask you about Peggy's question, I just wanted to make a comment, and maybe you might want to make a comment, that one of the things we talk a lot about on Orville Nation is how Seth MacFarlane apparently he takes his work ethic from animation, and they have all their scripts done and super polished before they start their season, and they're just like adding little tidbits, and apparently they have it all worked out. So it's kind of like what you were saying, to have, from your time on Stargate, to have things worked out ahead of time.
Yeah, no, that's it. I mean, what happens is you get in a room with writers, and and you just break the stories. It's called breaking the stories. You put it up on the whiteboard. What happens in the opening scene? What happens in Act 1? What happens in Act 2? And so on. How do you end the episode? And then you take that beat sheet and you go out and you flesh it out in an outline. You get notes. Then you go to first draft. And then you get notes. You go to second draft. And so, season 1 was actually probably the easiest to write because I had really sat on those 13 story ideas for so long that once we got into the room, we ended up, most productions for a 13 episodes a season would take at least, I think, 3 to 5 months to break 13 episode season. We did it in 2.5 weeks. And then we went off and wrote. So yes, very much you want to prepare as much as possible. But then, I could have done more, but I wanted to keep the last few episodes kind of open because I wanted to see what the actors brought to the table. And that sort of, it didn't change the backstories or the general arcs, but it did lead to obviously changes in dialogue, in certain relationships, and in screen presence. I mean, the character of Android, played by Zoe Palmer, is a perfect example of that. Originally, she was intended to be a background character, but our scripts kept coming in short. And so I had to write extra scenes. And she was so much fun that I just wrote for her character. And we ended up, creating this whole other backstory for the android and character arc of her own. And she, over the course of the show, became very much a member of the crew. Like she was a member of this, dysfunctional family.
That was something I was just going to bring up about the casting, because I'm glad you did what you did, because I can't imagine having that droid as a background character. It really enriched the whole thing. But how much were you involved with the casting anyway? Because I think each one is pretty dang brilliant.
Yeah, I was all over the casting. So it was myself, Jay Firestone, who was the president of Prodigy Pictures, the production company, and Vanessa Piazza, who was also an executive producer. But I kind of knew. With each character was, we talked about the fact the importance I play on humor in the show. So I wanted to make sure that all the characters were humorous in a different way, and so that was key for me in casting. But the casting process was just very interesting. I remember, for instance, the character of 3, played by Anthony Lemke, when he auditioned, there was no one even close to him. Like usually you have a top 2 or 3. He was the guy. And I remember telling him, he was like, I wish we would have known that, my agent would have known that when we were negotiating my deal. But, he was great. Melissa, she had not done any television before. She was on Broadway. I think she was on doing Les Mis. And I think she what do you call it? Sort of she wasn't the lead. She was kind of like the backup for the lead. It's sort of
understudy.
Yeah, the understudy, right? Yes. So she auditioned for us. I remember our casting agent sending us her audition tape and saying, this girl's never done anything before, but she is so good. And when I saw her, I was like, she's the character, because I've always been a big anime fan, and you can see very much the anime influences in this series, from kind of the swords in space angle of 4 to the character of 5, who in many ways reflects the character of Radical Edward and Cowboy Bebop, to Melissa's character, who I wanted, an Asian female lead, and and I was just amazed that she was just perfect for the role.
Joe, do you want to comment on Peggy's comment?
Did you have these? Okay, Peggy asked.
You? Go ahead.
Did you, Joe, have these written as small books? I think as storyboards for those 9 episodes, and how much did the actors add to their characters as they went? Well, I mean, as I said, storyboards. You know, I usually imagine like what you were talking about, animation, where you're breaking it down visually. But in the writer's room, you really break it down, a story beat by beat. So very much, you know, I had the idea of what stories would be. We broke them in the room. And then, you know, when it got to the actors, they just embraced the characters and made them their own. And that's what I was talking about, the fact that these guys, you know, the cast was so good that it was really really a collaboration, right? I mean, they would bring the characters to life that were on the script, occasionally adding stuff. Especially Anthony, like he always used to love to eat. When he was in the mess, he'd be like, "Hey, can I do this scene eating?" Remember actually one scene, he's like eating a lamb chop. He wanted to eat like this enormous lamb chop, and so basically in the first take we're like, okay, and then by the last take he's like gnawing on the bone because we didn't have any backup lamb chops. Anyways, that was Anthony, but you know he would always say something like, "Hey, can I add this or can I do this?" And 9 times out of 10, I would always say yes. I mean, you know, add it. I mean, do what's in the script, but also do an alt version, your version, and then I'll decide in the editing room. And 9 times out of 10, I would use, you know, what he would bring in, and you know, that's how the characters grew, and you know, it informed the characters on screen, but it also informed me in my writing as I continued to write them, and write for them.
By the way, eating on every time they are eating and doing stuff like that, like it just makes you feel like they're really living on the ship. So I thought that was, those little subtle things are.
I'm quite sure that Anthony must have put on like 15 pounds every season because he loved, I think there was this gruel that they would always eat, and it was like cinnamon oatmeal that he really liked. And so, you know, they would just make him cinnamon oatmeal, and that's what he would eat. You can't, you know, count how many times he actually eats moving forward in these episodes.
We'll do that, actually.
We're going to notice that.
Yeah.
Thank you, Fat Steven Seagal. I'm sorry you can't fit in the airlock, but thank you for your support, my friend. Thank you so much. So here we see here that they're as they're coming out, we see here in this scene where that one is saying that they're naming themselves as in the order that they woke up. Mm-hmm. And 6 is, and they're telling 6, well, I guess you're 6 because he was the 6th one out. Is there any, by the way, without getting into any future, and without getting into any spoilers, is there any significance, Joe, to their number of appearance at the
Some, yes. I mean, the character of 1, you think he's going to be, as you know, number 1 is a number 1 in the call sheet on the production. He's going to be the hero, but it turns out he's really not the hero. And number 2, you know, she's the one who really steps up. 4 is in Asian culture. Number 4 is death. So I thought that was apropos. So that's you know why he's 4. And you know, and I'm trying to think about. I mean, I'm not sure about 5, 6, and 3. What my thinking was.
I have a reasoning for 6, but I don't want to say it because I think it's a spoiler. But I thought I saw a reason for 6. But anyway.
All right.
Let's see. Sometimes fans just read too much into stuff, Joe.
I love it.
That's our job.
It was basically what I thought subconsciously.
I know, right? And here again, we see our good friend 3 discover. You know, they're trying to explore the ship, and they're finding Tackleberry finds his crate of arms, which is so iconic of him. And we start to go through this process where they're starting to explore aspects of the ship and discovering things. And so they've woken up everybody, as far as they know,
Mhm.
and they've gone to they've discovered that they're apparently shipping arms.
Mhm.
Is one of the things that they've kind of discovered about themselves, and they discover a lot of other stuff. They go ahead and they discover what is it, 3 and 6 discover the Marauder,
Mhm.
which I thought is a pretty cool little shuttle they got.
Yeah.
And
Who designed that? Was that the same one who did the rest of the ship?
Yeah.
It looks
So
different.
no, Bartol Redalik, I think you pronounce his last name, designed both the. Oh no! Wait, no. Yeah, Bartol designed the Raza, but actually James Robbins, who was a production designer on Stargate, designed the Phantom class Marauder. And he ended up actually designing a bunch of the other ships as well, I believe.
I don't know
the corporate
why, but
ships.
it kind of reminds me of the shuttles from Destiny.
Oh yeah, yeah. I'm sure that was an influence because our production designer Ian Brock, he was like a huge Stargate Universe fan, which surprised me. I'm always surprised by who is and who isn't a Stargate fan or a sci-fi fan or a dark matter fan. I remember actually I was in LA. I think after season 1 aired, and I went to dinner with Mark Ben David, who played the part, the character of One, and we took an Uber, and we were just talking to the Uber driver, and we're like, what are you watching now? He's like, I just discovered this great sci-fi show called Dark Matter, and we're like, are you kidding me? And basically, then he recognized Mark, and he took pictures with Mark, but it's just, I always. It's so tough working in sci-fi because I one of the other producers on Stargate, for instance, whenever he would take meetings in LA, the executives would never know. They'd be like, Stargate, was that on in the US? Whereas basically in France, Chris Judge, who would play Teal'c, couldn't walk down the street without being recognized. People were like mobbing, like, Monsieur Teal'c, Monsieur Teal'c. It's something about Europe. Especially love their sci-fi.
That's awesome.
what did I do? 1 second. Wrong one. Oh, there we are. Okay, there we are. And Joe's been so kind to share a lot of behind the scenes pictures, and that's what I was trying to share. And let's see. There we go.
I can't wait. Oh,
And-
yeah.
Do you want to tell us what this is, Joe?
This is the bridge under construction. And that's Mean Gene Brophy, who works on our show. I love the design because I hadn't seen this done before. Because I usually, when you're on the bridge, you have the big bay window that also subs as a view screen or the backdrop for a holo screen. So this look actually was really cool. And there's a shot. The first 2 episodes are directed by T.J. Scott, and one of my favorite shots is that scene where everybody's going to sleep, or everybody's sleeping except 2, who sits on the bridge, and it's a shot. It's an interior shot where you pan past the windows and you look in on her while everyone is either asleep or doing some other stuff. And the fact that she's not sleeping, is also a subtle hint as to what's to come. But it's layers upon layers.
Absolutely. And Joe, do you want to tell us again? Do you want to remind us again what was your whole inspiration when you were kind of putting this, like when you were coming up with Dark Matter? Do you want to?
Yeah, I'm a sci-fi fan. I've always been a big fan of the bad guys, and I think one of the shows that most influenced me, obviously besides Blake 7, is not a sci-fi series, but one of my favorite pilots is the pilot for The Shield. I don't know if you've seen it, but it ends with the biggest WTF moment where the good guys suddenly become the very bad guys. And so that's what I set out to do with Dark Matter. I've always been fascinated by this idea of redemption. And, are you born bad? Are you a product of your environment? Can people change? And so I wanted to create a show that followed the bad guys and, introduced these mysterious characters. By the end of the episode, you find out that they're the absolute worst of the worst. And then you kind of spend the rest of the show or the series peeling the onion on their backstories and deciding whether you ultimately forgive them or not.
Well, that's
I have
one
to
of the.
say,
Go
go
ahead.
ahead.
Nope. No, because I've been talking way more than you.
No, but like with the whole episode, I didn't even have a clue that was the direction you were going. And I love when that happens. Because you think it's a sci-fi show. You're following the good guys. Sure, their memories are wiped, but they're going to figure this out. And then you just realize, good God, man.
Yeah. Well, that's
what makes good sci-fi.
Yeah, that's what I set out to do. And all of a sudden, every episode ends with like a double holy crap moment at the end. So, as you'll see sort of as each episode goes on, twists, turns, shocks, and surprises. That's what I love about when I sit down and watch a show. If a show can surprise me, then I'm on board. And that's what I set out to do, is just, not kind of like, cheap, like surprises that aren't set up, but basically surprises that are set up. And, it's sort of like at the end of The Sixth Sense when you're like, well, this doesn't make any sense. Then you realize, oh my God, it does. And, that's what I really set out to do with the show.
I'm going to love this show, I can tell.
Oh, I hope so.
You are, Katie.
I love it when shows are like roller coasters because it's just such a fun ride.
Well, these are pods.
Yeah, these are the pods where, right, Joe, where we find that somebody has been a stasis pod, correct?
Yep, correct. So interesting. I mean, I'm not sure if you were aware, but Dark Matter was a comic book before it went to air. And I mean, I had the pilot, and I got my start in animation. I was a manager of animation development, and I quickly learned that while people sort of respect original ideas, everybody wants IP. And I think we discussed this on a previous podcast, the fact that if it's an intellectual property, if it's based on a book, if it's based on something proven, then they love it even more. So I approached Dark Horse Comics about turning the first 2 episodes into the opening arc of a comic book series. And really what I really wanted to do was continue the comic book series. But they were like, no, let's focus on the 4 issues and see where we go with that. And so, in the comic book, the stasis pods are filled with like an amniotic fluid that basically spills out onto the graded floor. And once you sort of move into production and you adapt your work, there are certain I don't say corners you have to cut, but you have to sort of decide where you want to put the money. And the money, in the end, we decided not to put it in amniotic fluid. We just went with the smoke effect inside the stasis pods, which look pretty cool as well.
Now, with when they woke up, like the order they woke up, I had this theory just watching the episode. But did they wake up based on if they're a heavy sleeper and a light sleeper? Because I would totally be 6.
It's possible. It's possible. That's an interesting theory.
It's like a little headcanon I had going on, like 6.
I like it. Yeah. I can see Roger sleeping in,
Just like the kind of guy who sleeps through an earthquake.
Yeah. He seems the type.
And Joe, do you want to do you want to say how the comics might tie into episode 1 or like?
Well, I mean, the first 2 issues of the comic book are pretty much exactly episode 1, almost like dialogue beat for beat. The episodes 3 and 4, at the time, episode 2 wasn't written. So issues 3 and 4 are more or less, I mean, it progresses pretty much along the same way as the second episode does. Well, I think there's a little more, a few more explosions in the comic book. Well, there's Ian Brock, our production designer, checking out the stasis pods as they're, in production here. Wood and I think and plastic for the glass.
That'd make a really cool like bed after you finish up the show.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, Joe, do you sleep in one?
Sadly, I did not keep a stasis pod, although it always happens. I mean, at the time, things are just so crazy and you don't think about it. But in retrospect, I'm like, I should have kept a pod, although it would have driven my wife crazy. She'd be like, where the hell are you going to put a pod? I mean, it's bad enough. I kept a bunch of stuff from the show, a bunch of props and costumes and
I got some spare cash. Can we make a deal here?
Sure, absolutely. Well, I told the stuff because in my mind, I'm like, if we get a chance to do the miniseries, then I'm going to have, a lot of the stuff already packed away.
Or you could just have a really great time at Comic-Con. Just get all your friends, go cosplaying.
We could all be Galactic Authority.
Yes.
And
I had a question. It just kind of, it was an off question. I don't know how often you get asked something like this because it's not. I haven't heard too many. But when you start a show like this, and it's you got a few comic book people that may recognize it right away. But what was your main goal, and how did the advertising go for it? Because I caught a commercial on Sci-Fi. Yeah. And I'm a big sci-fi buff. Anything sci-fi, I'll give it a shot. And of course, I got hooked right away. But I was just wondering, what was your main focus for the advertising? Because it obviously worked on me.
Well, I mean, I'm glad it worked on you, but I have to say I was kind of disappointed with the advertising, and there was hardly any. I mean, I'm always amazed by I frequent Reddit a lot, and the people who discover dark matter now, they'll come across it on Netflix and they'll be like, oh, maybe the show isn't for me, and then they'll sit down and watch it and end up loving it. And it just it was a very much of an under the radar show. So I'm glad you noticed it, but for the most part, I think it was word of mouth really. And I mean, we did get an initial push from some of the magazines and some of the websites. In fact, as the show went on, I ended up building a great relationship with a lot of the reviewers who would review the episodes on a weekly basis. But at the beginning, there wasn't really that much of a push, or as much of a push as I would have liked.
That's a shame.
No, that's such as the show business, unless you're, like a big show like Battlestar Galactica. I remember they got the billboards and the posters, and I think that, they got, I think the pilot ended up airing on NBC, but we're just kind of a small show, so we were not afforded the same opportunities, sadly.
Plus, you didn't have the pre-made audience from the 70s, like Battlestar did, or Star Trek, or one of those.
And it was definitely under my radar. I mean, I can say I heard about it, but it was it was definitely under my radar. Joe, Corrine asks, what prop that you envisioned were you most excited to see come to life?
My favorite prop? What prop? I guess Three's gun, Bubba. It's in the comic book, it's like a one heavy duty.
The BFG.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, and so I was very much looking forward to seeing how that would come together, and the thing is massive, and there were two versions. One was the actual real version for like those hero shots that weighed a lot, and then there was a lighter version that he could basically run with. And again, I'm talking about sort of anime influence, but that gun was almost as big as Jodelle. And one of like the classic anime tropes is the little girl with the big gun. And after season 1, I was like, I've got to get that gun into Five's hands, and we ended up doing it in season 2. So you can watch for that.
And here we see a little bit more of. Let me just make this bigger, of the actual working.
Oh yeah, the pods.
And Joe's been so kind to show us some of these back, behind the scenes images.
I can only imagine, like, if that was filled with fluid, how difficult that would have been to reshoot.
Yes, and refill.
Oh man!
Right, and the floors you would probably want to have them porous so it could drain out.
Yes, graded. It would have been like a whole thing. So yeah, there's Alex Malari Jr., who's been very busy since the show has ended. He's done a couple of Netflix series. I think he's doing a movie now. So,
wow,
yeah.
Did he come in with sword skills?
He sent in a demo reel that was basically cut together of sort of the small roles he played. But one of the things that struck me was he did this whole sort of like boxing sequence where he taped up his hands, and it was him boxing. I didn't know if he had actually worked with swords, and I don't know if he had actually done much sword play. But he was obviously up to the task, and he was like, there was a short list of like 2 or 3. The role was actually opened up to all genders, so we had a couple of actresses who were on the short list as well, who were fantastic. But Alex really embraced the role, and he's just fantastic, and he actually grew as an actor as well. You can see sort of his early performance to the way his performance matures over the course of the 3 seasons. It's something really amazing to watch.
I think that added to his gaining his memory as well over time.
Yeah, and then Mystique, and the fact that the show wasn't picked up for the 4th season is kind of heartbreaking because I think of what I had planned for these characters, and I won't give anything away, but what I had planned for 4 would have been very cool. So,
fan film. What was that?
Can you address that real quick, Joe? What's the policy for any fan films? Are you guys CBSing your fans, or are you being more open?
No, I mean, look, I really, it's more of an issue for Prodigy Pictures. But, the fact that we didn't have T-shirts, that we didn't, I kind of always have embraced the fan community. I've never seen what the issue is with fan fiction or fan films, how they could hinder or take money away from the original. In fact, actually, more than anything, it just keeps the spirit of the original alive. So, I've always been a big fan. It's also these pictures of there's Jodelle on set between scenes. Sometimes rather than go back to her trailer, she would just kind of curl up in a chair and nap like a little kitten on a chair. In fact, I have some photos of her kind of curled up napping. One of the policies of a lot of shows is they never like to release images before the episode airs. And I've always been of the opposite belief, that unless it's a huge spoiler, get fans excited. Show them what the ship design is going to be. Show them, an interior of the ship, get the buzz going earlier on or between episodes, rather than just keeping everything a secret. One of my favorite stories of kind of that mindset was, I think, the Devlin and Emmerich Godzilla movie, where they didn't want to reveal the look of Godzilla before the premiere, and so they waited, and the movie premiered, and it bombed, and it was really bad because apparently toy sales for movies like a Godzilla, usually the biggest toy sales are like in the ramp up to the movie. So basically they would have sold, I don't know how many Godzillas or tie-in things in like the month before the premiere. But the fact that they couldn't, there was a moratorium on the look, they had to wait till after the premiere. And because they waited, they ended up getting screwed. So, let that be a lesson to productions. Give your fans or potential fans a sneak peek.
Absolutely. Joe, Corrine says she's up for doing a fan film. That's great.
Excellent. I know. I'm familiar with Corrine. I think she would be great.
I wanted to ask you, Joe, without getting into spoilers, we see down the road, we see possibilities of, so now we're in episode 1, and they have no memories of who they are. And so it's kind of like a clean slate for them. And it's kind of like they can go in either direction. They can develop their personalities from this point in either direction. And we see, like, down the road, without getting into spoilers, how their lives may have otherwise turned out, I guess you could say. Would you say that, is it fair to say that this crew, the crew of the Raza, turns out the way they do in part to Five's influence? Yes,
I would say that is a fair assumption, and it's something that I think actually even Six mentions at one point in the show, the fact that really, like, in the last scene of the episode, you see all their mugshots up there except Five. And you wonder, like, how the hell does she get on board? And she ends up being the glue that really holds them all together. And you'll see how, it's interesting how their relationship develops, especially her relationship with Three, where clearly at the beginning they don't like each other, and then by the end of by episode 3 they develop this big brother little sister relationship that's really kind of heartwarming.
How many people auditioned, or do you remember, for her role? How easy was it to pick her out?
We had, I would say, like at least 50 people audition for each role. Some of like the leads, as many as like 200. But I always had her. I had always had Jodelle Ferland in the role as Five, just because I worked with her when she was 13 years old on an episode of Stargate called Harmony, where she played a petulant little princess, Princess Harmony. And I remember I was on set for pretty much the entire shoot. We were in the forest. It was her, Joe Flanagan, and David Hewlett, and her mother accompanied her, and she knew all her lines. She not only knew her lines, but she knew Joe and David's lines, and she would prompt them if they would ever hesitate or get mixed up. And I was so impressed with her performance. And so years later, when I created the character of Five, I thought of her. In fact, actually, the character of Five was originally envisioned as a lot younger. She was like a 13-year-old. Jodelle at 13 would have been perfect, but Jodelle at, I think she was 19 or 20 when the show premiered, she was equally perfect. I remember reaching out to her like, hey, I want you to audition for the show. And she was fantastic. She was really great. Another thing that sort of, just kind of, you think back to the casting and the way things could have gone. And I remember she was basically in the short list. It was her and another girl who was very good, but she was not the character. And I remember one of the producers saying, this character has to be sexy. And I'm like, have you read the script? This character is not. This character is supposed to be the kid. She's not supposed to be sexy, and I very much fought for Jodelle, and she was just fantastic. She, in the end, I mean, she's been in the business acting since she was, I think, like 2 or 3. Like, started off with commercials, and she was always the creepy kid in Silent Hill, and in the horror movies. And so, with 20 years experience, she was the most experienced actor on the cast, which is kind of amazing, given that everyone else was older than her.
Right.
That's impressive.
Wow. And here we just, this image is from further down the episode, but we see here where 3 is voting to not let
Her vote. Yeah.
her vote.
Yeah, this scene is actually very interesting in that it also gives you a kind of a hint of the dynamics. The fact that basically 3 is always a contrarian, and 4 is a little more mercenary, but he's also a logical thinker. 6 and 1 are kind of more the kind of the more reasoned characters, and 5 thinks with her heart. But the way the vote goes down, I don't know if anybody ever notices, but basically they're like, okay, what are we going to do? Are we going to go down, send them down to the surface, or we're going to keep the weapons? And so 2 vote to send them down to the surface, 3 vote to keep the weapons, and 2, with the deciding vote, decides to do something completely different and send half to the surface and keep half. So essentially, she makes the decision. They call it to a vote, but it seems like a compromise, but really she's just making the call, and that's very much her character.
And does that whole vote, Joe, say something about who they all used to be, too?
Yeah, I think very much as well. It sort of gives you a hint of who these people were as well.
Interesting. I'm trying to think, where's this going to go? But yeah. I don't think I'm going to guess where it's going to go.
No spoilers.
The only spoiler I'll give for you is you're in for a good ride. This is fun.
Thank you.
Woo!
Most definitely. And Katie is the queen of cosplay, so we'll see what she comes up with when she finishes watching Dark Matter.
There might be a Dark Matter fandom forecast coming up. Who knows?
And Joe, let me ask you. This has been on my mind because I'm bilingual and I speak Spanish. Does the name of Raza? Is there any intention to that? In Spanish, it means race in Spanish, like ethnicity, race.
It could, but it could also refer to sort of a clean slate, in Latin, the tabula rasa. And the fact that sort of their memories were wiped.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
Or it could just be the name of the ship that they ended up getting somehow, or one of them ended up taking.
Now, that's you just brought up another question for me. Mm. How much has gone, like, what part of the story that's in your head has yet to be revealed because there's no season 4? Is there?
As I said, I envisioned the series as a 5-season story arc, with each season almost as an installment in a book series, with a beginning, a middle, and an end. So the major mysteries that you set up in season 1, who wiped their memories, who can they trust, who can they not trust, is very much season 1. And I'm not going to give away anything about the finale, but just say that the way the finale, the first episode ends, it's very appropriate given the way the first season ends. And so, the second season, again, I don't want to give away spoilers, but is very much, a beginning, middle, and end. Third season as well. Fourth and fifth season, it's kind of unfortunate because I did have a game plan for those as well. And I had actually envisioned 2 two endings for the series. One was actually a very dark ending, and one was a more kind of upbeat ending. You know, I mean, in a perfect world, we get the chance to basically tell that story as a mini series, as maybe a sort of 6 to 8 episode mini series sometime down the road.
That'd be awesome.
I mean, you know, Farscape got the shot, got a chance. So,
wow. So getting back to the episode, and we see here that there's some kind of alert. There's some kind of activity that's been started on the ship, and they find themselves battling the android.
mm-hmm.
And it's curious. It's curious. I actually wanted to. I was curious about this because what is actually going on here with the android? Because I thought it was kind of left unanswered, Joe.
Yeah, well, basically, it's left unanswered in the pilot, but then you kind of put together the clues about what happened later on in the season, and I'll point them out as we go, especially in we do or it's not this season, maybe season 2, where we do the AU episode. Anyways,
okay.
But essentially, what the android is awakened and attacks them immediately, and 2 points out some sort of security protocol has been enacted. So for some reason, the android is on security mode. She doesn't recognize them, and views them as a potential threat. And so they ended up shutting her down. But in shutting her down, they ended up wiping her memory stores. And it's kind of appropriate enough that her condition ends up mirroring the very same conditions that they suffer from. The fact that they all have amnesia as well.
And she doesn't actually kill anybody. That should be pointed out.
No, exactly. She basically attacks them, and then through Chu's quick actions, she ends up being shut down before she can actually hurt anyone.
Would she have actually, if she hadn't been stopped, do you would she have actually gone on and killed someone, or was she more of the just aim to wound sort of security robots?
I think you'll see in later episodes that she is perfectly capable of dealing with threats. So I think that she could have been looking to subdue them, but in the event that they would have proven unsubduable, then she would have taken the appropriate steps to ensure that they would not have been a threat.
Okay.
Any truth to Jack O'Neill's question of rumors? Were the rumors true about an SG-1 crossover with season 4 of Dark Matter?
Somewhat true. After the show was canceled, I was in talks with MGM, and at the time they were looking for material for their channel, and so we discussed the possibility, and I thought, well, what a great opportunity is, MGM owns Stargate, and if they end up airing Dark Matter, this would be a great opportunity to, keep Stargate franchise alive and give offer a few Easter eggs to the Stargate fans. So that was under discussion, and if it had happened, then yeah, absolutely, it would have been great to to be able to do something like that. But sadly, we were up against the clock, and it was just it just would have taken too much time. So the decision had to be made early, and sadly, it was a no.
Okay, and we see a little bit. We see that's amazing, Joe. Itself, that whole. I mean, maybe we can get into it another time.
Sure,
that whole thing is that whole concept that you're talking about is amazing. We see here also a couple of scenes later. We see that our first moment kind of with 6 and 3, and it's kind of awkward. But
Or 6 and 5, or 6 and 3.
Oh, I'm sorry. Sorry, 6 and 5. Sorry,
Yeah.
You're right. 6 and 5. Yeah, it's kind of awkward, but it's the first time because they have kind of a special relationship that forms.
Yeah.
How does it? What was your? I mean, I think you probably knew where their relationship was going. How is it? How is this first scene for you in writing it?
I mean, the pilot is kind of raw. I look back at it and I'm like, some things are going to change. I would have changed in retrospect, but this scene very much, encapsulates the characters. How 6 is kind of very patient, and how kind of super weird 5 is. Like you're like, what exactly is going on with this kid? And it kind of a harbinger for things to come. I look at the scene and I think back to how we ended up casting Roger. And there's a scene in a later episode where he's talking to her after some incident, and he basically just says, there'll come a time, like essentially we're bad people, and you're not like us, and there'll come a time when you leave the ship, and when that time comes, I'm going to miss you, kid. I'm going to miss you a lot. And it's such a powerful scene, but it's kind of a quietly understated power to that scene and kind of a warmth to that scene. And we had so many actors try it, and they were good actors, but the warmth wasn't there until basically Roger Cross auditioned. And I was like, I think Roger, frankly, is just a naturally warm human being. If you ever meet him, he's just terrific. And just that came through in that scene. And then, that was, I love so many of the relationships on this show, but the relationship between 5 and 6, I think, not just me, but it was like a huge fan favorite as well.
Yeah, he is a warm human being, actually. You're absolutely right. He is very much a warm human being. We see them continue to discover things, and we see here that 4 is discovering a box which he does not open in this episode. And there's little things about their past that they keep discovering, which he also had this box hidden, which is interesting how he found it.
Yeah. So very much like there's a point where one is like, our memories are wiped, but they're not obviously completely wiped, because we wouldn't know how to talk then. I wouldn't know what a stasis pod was, but like our histories about ourselves, for instance, are wiped. And you can tell sort of like 4 seems to be a little more intuitive. Like there's that scene where he's walking down I think it's that very same scene, and where he's like, he turns and he's like, this way. And so then they end up turning and going, this way. And he's very instinctive. And so basically this scene, he senses that he should be going. It's almost like muscle memory. And that's another conversation they have, I think in episode 9, where they're like, 3 is basically twirling his gun, and it's like muscle memory. I want to remember something, I can't, and yet I can just instinctively do this. That's exactly what 4 is doing here. He's basically walking down. He's like, this locker, he opens it up, it's empty. And he's like, wait a minute, and then taps, and it's the false wall, and he pulls out this box. He doesn't know what it is, but he just has to figure out the puzzle. Who's good at puzzles? It's 4? I don't think so.
So that's what I absolutely loved about it too, was when I saw that it was a puzzle box, and went, that's actually really cool in a sci-fi futuristic show that you're still using things like puzzle boxes. Because even now, the techniques of hiding things in boxes with different mechanics, and that is an old style of hiding stuff.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't it survive? So I actually pointed out, I was like, oh, so I really enjoyed that.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm very appropriate for him as well, for his character.
Yeah.
And
no, that does make a lot of sense of what gets revealed about him later, that he would have something like that, Yeah,
and we see them all of a sudden we see them. The android has been reactivated. She informs two. They're both on the bridge. She informs two that they're emitting some kind of beacon, and here we see them that they're actually being attacked.
Yeah.
And right before they go ahead and go into hyperspace, they lose their gravity.
Right. Yeah. And that's a fun little scene. And again, you know, they're just like little touches in the scenes that just hint at who these characters are. Like, you know, Chu walks in with the android, and the android has a neural link and can just control the ship. And she was like, no, show me. And so the android shows her, and then, you know, she has to do something else, and the android starts to do it neurally, and she's like, no, show me. And then basically, then they get into trouble, and she's like, you know, do something. And the android's like, yeah, do you want me to show you? And she's like, just do it. And she does. So you see that the android also has a bit of an attitude as well.
I love the sass.
Yeah. Oh, and this is John Stead overseeing our 0G scene with Mark Ben David and Anthony Lemke. It's kind of interesting in that it was like some sort of a rig where you can actually slot in how close to the floor you want to get. And so it was just amazing. I mean, every time they did it, they would just basically fall on you. You think they're going to hit the floor, but they would always stop like just inches from the floor.
Oh.
Wow.
That'd be utterly terrifying to film.
And you need one of those in your studio.
I really do. Can you imagine how exciting the morning news would be if we had those?
Maybe spinning around. We got a tornado.
I will make my own weather.
Thanks, Edson Ricky. Android Kill Them All. One of my all-time faves. Says Edson Ricky.
Yeah, that's a season 2 episode. Season 1 has no episode titles, and I thought that was appropriate because the characters don't have names or memories. So it was like episode 1, episode 2, and one of the requests that we got from the network after season 1 was, please come up with some episode titles. And at that point, after the first season, as the characters have begun to sort of explore their backstories, at that point I was like, okay, fine, we can give them episode titles. But I personally hate coming up with episode titles, so I decided to involve the fans. So what I did was I would go through every script, and I would pick out 3 lines of dialogue that were in the script in the episode that I thought were representative of the episode, and I would just put it to a fan vote on Twitter. And so the fans decided the episode titles from episode 2 and onwards. So Kill Them All was a fan choice, and it is actually a very appropriate title, I think.
That's amazing.
How cool is that, Joe? Wow.
I've never even, I don't know if this has happened before. Like, I'm not familiar with it, but that is so, that is what fun. I think sci-fi should do.
Yeah, embrace the fans.
Exactly. Oh, and that means the world to fans, too. It makes them feel like they're such a part of the show.
Exactly.
That is awesome.
That's why we love Joe.
Yeah, Joe loves you too.
And here we see the gravity come back, and there is without getting into spoilers, I think that Joe has used the gravity here. And let me say real quick, I think I missed the super chat. I will get back to you guys on that. I apologize. I think there's one that's way off my radar right now, so I will get back to it next stream. And Joe, there's something that you did very interesting with the gravity here. Without getting into spoilers, we see here that the crew, the gravity comes back 5. We see 5 fall. We see
1 and 3 fall.
1 and 3 fall. Actually, I think we briefly see 4. I didn't get that image. Here we see 1 and 3, and we see that whatever indicator this is about 2, she is, let's say she's more prepared than they are.
Instinctively is able to land.
Very athletically. She lands very athletically. Yeah, instinctively.
Like a cat.
Yes, cat-like. Yes, exactly.
Yeah. So without getting into any spoilers, there's all these little Easter eggs that now when we go back, isn't it wonderful when you're really a true sci-fi fan that we can go back and watch this? And I'm appreciating this on a whole new level. What do you think, Adega? I bet you are too.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. This is like my 4th time through, I think.
Wow.
But after talking with you last week, it's like the gears start clicking in, and looking at it a whole new way. So it's not boring at all. Or I shouldn't say boring, but
yeah,
you can cloy of something when you see it too many times. But it's not like that at all with this.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, a lot of planning went into it. So there's a lot of clues, some very subtle. Like even in I'm not going to give it away, but in an episode that's coming up, there's a scene where a character says something to another character that just seems kind of a weird thing to say. And remember, online, some of the fans were like, "Why would she say that?" And other fans were like, "Oh, you're making a big deal out of it. There's no, you're just reading too much into it." And then 5 episodes later, you find out why, and there's very much a reason for it. So that was always a lot of fun. Basically, like I said, surprising the audience. But I just love those type of movies or shows that take the time to set stuff up so that when you go back and watch it, you can kind of watch it again with kind of a new appreciation and go like, "Oh my God, how did I miss that?" Or that's what that meant.
I'm looking forward to it.
Great.
I'm actually kind of jealous that you get to go through it with larger eyes than I had the first time through.
I'm trying to look in the scene like what could be an Easter egg. I'm not even going to try.
Edson, Ricky, thanks for your support, my friend. The black ships, I got to know, it's killing me.
Yes. So I will say this with regard to season 3 and the cancellation. Like I said, I know where we were going to go. I think we didn't have any scripts written, but we had one script written, and we had outlines for, I think, the first 5 episodes of season 4. So what I did, after we were canceled to season 3, is I ended up posting what I call like a virtual season 4. The first 3 episodes of season 4 in sort of like beat by beat breakdowns of what I had planned for each of those episodes. So, fans who wanted to find out what happened next got to find out at least what I had planned for those first 3 episodes.
Wow. You were going to say something, Adega?
No, we're good.
Okay. And so we see the next scene. They briefly talked with the android about that they're in the middle of, like, I think it's 3 that says they're in the middle of nowhere, and the android says, "No, actually, we're not in the middle of nowhere. We're headed towards the planet." And apparently the ship was like on its way there already. And we see here 2 swing by and tell 1 that get dressed. We're going down to the surface, and he's sitting there in his boxers, and there's a brief little bit of sexual tension. Like Joe said before, a lot of it's coming from him. There's a little bit from her, but she's really good at hiding it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I mean, you'll see how things go, but I mean, the expectation is, you think possibly these 2 are going to get together. And I'm not going to give anything away, but we'll see how things pan out.
Are you going to mess up my ship?
Is that your ship?
The head cannon's going.
And then we see, so they're on the surface of this colony, and now it's very interesting because there's a lot of moments here where 1 almost steps into a leadership role.
Mm-hmm.
There's also a lot of little things about there's a lot of things about one's behavior that really says a lot to who he was before. And he does stand out from the other crew in that sense.
Exactly. I mean, basically, 4 is cool under pressure. I mean, they're all of them are actually very cool, and 3 is actually the opposite of 1. He's like, he doesn't want to get involved. He's like, we're thanks for taking care of us. Good luck. Whereas sort of 1 is really feeling the need to help these people and sort of trying to dig at what's going on, and he kind of wants to be honest with them. Whereas 3 obviously instinctively, given the life he has led, knows enough to basically not trust anyone, and is really more about saving his own skin than really saving anyone else's.
That's where I got that disgruntled Han Solo thing.
Right.
Yep.
Very good. That's true. And then we also see here that there's the woman that they're resupplying on the colony,
Mm-hmm.
and they've obviously exchanged some goods with them. And the woman on the colony tells shows 1 this pendant
Mm-hmm.
that sparks interest in him, and he and number one and 1 too much Star Trek.
All of a sudden, Riker just pops up.
And 1, like Joe said, 1 really wants to help them, and it's interesting because 6 is kind of on board with helping them.
Mm-hmm.
And then we get to that picture that we said before, because that shown it earlier. That picture about them voting,
Mm-hmm.
about what wasn't clear to me, Joe, was the
Mm-hmm.
pendant and the symbol of the pendant. Can you shed any light on that?
Sure. Essentially, 1 in an earlier scene before they go down to the surface, in the nighttime scene, he's basically checking out stuff in his room. He lies down and he finds a pendant that looks exactly like this one. And then when he goes down to the surface, he sees this woman wearing the exact same pendant. And he's like, "What's the significance of the pendant?" And she's like, "Well, we're waiting for," she mentions this guy, Hrothgar, who is supposed to be bringing them weapons. And, she said that, whoever essentially is bringing the weapons or is going to help them is going to have the same pendant. And that's how they'll know that we can trust them. And so that's what sort of, it makes it click for 1, that essentially we've got weapons in our hold. We're supposed to go here. I've got the pendant that matches this woman's pendant, so we're supposed to be we're supposed to be bringing these pendants to these people. And then, I don't want to give, I don't know how much, if we can spoil episode 1, but they find out that it's actually, he's not quite right. He's close, but not quite right.
Yeah, you can spoil episode 1, Joe.
Yeah, exactly. Essentially, they find out that they essentially intercepted Hrothgar, presumably wiped out Hrothgar and the crew, and took their weapons. And in fact, in a later episode, I had written a post attack scene where it's actually a scene between 1 and 5, where 1 is kind of upset by what essentially they've done, and he basically kept the pendant, and it was a nice scene that sadly, basically the episode, it was one of those rare instances where the episode was long, so we didn't get a chance to shoot it, but I've got it somewhere. I'll post it when we get there.
Great. And here we see here right before they sit down at the dinner table to lunch, whatever, their mess hall, to actually talk about a vote. We see here a brief character building scene, or kind of just a revealing. It's a scene that's starting to reveal a lot of things about 5.
Or you assume it's about 5. You know, basically 5 is kind of weird. There's something kind of going on, and then when she starts talking about, I had a dream, but it wasn't my dream, you begin to sort of like put the pieces together that, is she, if they're not her dreams, then basically they're one of the other crew members' dreams. She talks about living in the palace and carving out, eyes of some guards. That's some pretty scary shit. So you think, do they have a psychopath in their midst?
That's what I'm thinking.
And Joe, one of the things you do really good as a writer is the contrast, because and this information is given to the audience through the most innocent character, and there's a kind of a little shock moment, and even 2 is in shock when she's hearing this from
Yes.
5.
Yeah.
And like you said, the revelation is not even necessarily about 5; it's about everyone, all of them, right?
It's a really horrific, kind of like image. And then she's like, I hope they get, they pick up something to eat while they're down there. I'm like, really hungry. So basically, she's very like, it's weird, but everyone else around her will find it very weird. But for her, it's like, meh, it just goes to her character.
Yeah, and there's these, because there's these little when you do something like that, it's like these little mini cliffhangers that are for me
to be continued.
Anyway. Yeah, to be continued.
But they do pay off, so
Absolutely. Yeah, and so they're in the mess hall. Oh, dang it! Sorry, did I cut you off? Okay. They're in the mess hall. This is where we showed the scene before about 3. Right after this image, 3 votes to not let 5 vote, which is kind of apart from, it was kind of funny actually, and it always, I think it brings a chuckle to most everybody, and where was I? Yeah, okay, and right before. So, and what's going to happen here is that the episode is going to end without them actually having made a decision, but they're obviously going to find out.
Well, they do make a decision in that, they're loading the crates onto the Marauder, half the crates onto the Marauder when they get called to the.
You're right.
In fact, actually, it's one of those. There's a line. Where 3's kind of watching 1 kind of struggle with the crate, and he says, remember to lift with your back, take pressure off the knees. And I remember rewatching the episode. I'm like, oh shit, that's wrong. He should be lifting with the knees to take pressure off the back. And then I realized, oh no, that's the joke, and I had written it. I mean, it's always like, you come back to something like after so many years. You're like, oh, okay. It's like watching it new, like with you guys, because my memory's so bad.
And you're right. Actually, they did make a decision. I guess what happens. I guess what I was trying to say was that their decision seems kind of like in the air after they learn at the very end of the episode things about themselves. Let's see, and then there's right towards the very end of the episode, we see this moment here where I think it's 5 sees this image that the android is trying to recover data from the computer, and we see this image of I want to say Rodney. Yeah. But it's Tabor, I think it is. Is like
Tabor, yeah.
Tabor. But it's funny because we can all kind of see who it is, and just a great tease for anybody who's watching episode 1.
Yeah. So I mean, if you're a Stargate fan, you'll notice that there'll be like several Stargate cameos in Dark Matter, and I'll discuss those as sort of we get to them. But yes, that is David Hewlett as. The wonderful David Hewlett as Tibor Kalchak.
And let me ask you this question now, Joe. And we're probably going to end up asking it again. But when some of these actors are coming into the Dark Matter universe from like Stargate, for example, it seems to like either they're playing to their strengths when you're writing for them, or are you purposely writing roles that? So my question is: are you, when you're writing for them, is it that you're playing to their strengths as actors, or are you playing to their fan appeal for their character?
No, initially, I mean, the role honestly wasn't written for David, but I just thought David would be fantastic in the role, and he is. It's sort of like, it's not, I guess, a huge spoiler, but Tori Higginson, who plays Dr. Weir on Stargate Atlantis, plays a part of Commander Truffaut, and plays it very differently. She's very different from Elizabeth Weir. She's kind of a cross between, I think, I kind of like it. Maybe Elizabeth Weir and kind of a Mae West, and she was fantastic. But very much. I mean, you create the character, you think they would be great for the role. They are, and then as time goes on, as with any role, as they embrace it, and make it their own, you end up kind of adjusting the dialogue to their performance, and like you said, to their strengths.
So you don't think, and just because you mentioned Tori, you don't think that she was also, her character, as we're going to see in the following episodes, you don't think she's also kind of very political, very administrative as well, like Weir was?
Yeah, she is, but she's a lot more mercenary than Elizabeth ever was. I mean, she's certainly more of an opportunist.
Gotcha. Okay. Any comments on that, Katie or Dega? You wanted?
No, you covered it.
And so we get to the end of the episode, and we see this final scene where 2 says, "Hey, everybody, come up to the bridge," and they're this is the moment where they're all, "Hey, what's up? What's going on?" And she's starting to display information. The android is starting to display information. And like Joe said before, we see they're the
worst of the worst. Criminals, cutthroats, murderers. And it's interesting to see their reactions. Like, you just see it on their faces. Like, obviously 2 is horrified, 1 is stunned. You can't read 4. 6 is obviously troubled, and 3 is like, this is kind of cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of figured, No, that totally pulled the rug out from under me, because when I started the show, I'm like, you know what? I'm not going to read even like the summary on Netflix. I'm just going to go in and click on it. Oh, that killed me, because I'm rooting for them, and then you're just like, oh, they're the bad guys.
Yeah.
I think that's just such a good idea.
It was a great idea, Joe. It was fabulous.
Thank you. Like I said, I mean, I was inspired by The Shield, where the good guy, you realize, is actually a very bad person. I just, and then it's kind of the reverse of Breaking Bad, where essentially introduces this poor chemistry high school teacher who becomes this reprehensible character over the course of the show. But like I said, I love the redemption theme and being able to explore through these various characters, and the fact that it's as I said, is redemption possible? In some cases, yes, and in some cases, no. And it really depends on the character.
Now, Joe, do you think that the fans were on some level expecting something, but not maybe to this degree?
I honestly, I don't know. I think a lot of fans were surprised. I think maybe the impact of that first episode was somewhat lessened because it premiered as a 2-parter, which I honestly didn't want to happen. I wanted the pilot to air as the pilot, because it's that last moment is such a holy shit moment that it would be just great to carry it through a week. But I think the having it back to back kind of lessened the impact on its first airing.
Now I have to ask, with this picture, this could just be me, not knowing the series yet, but does that mean that 2 and 4 were never captured because they don't have?
That is exactly what that means. Those are close security shots. That is
Yeah.
good. Yes.
I love that because of all of
No
them,
kidding.
they would be the ones who would never get caught.
Mhm.
There
Hey,
you
I'm
that was
catching up
good.
on things.
Yes. Nicely done.
Woo! I'm keeping that as a score for Katie.
Nice.
Wow.
How did the after this aired the first? I'm sure you were just biting at the bit to know what the numbers were. How did it go? Because I'd never looked it up.
It was actually, it did quite well. I mean, we were on Sci-Fi, and my writing partner used to say it's like it's like being the best bullfighter in Russia. It's I mean, the numbers were good. In fact, they were always good. I think we were always like either the at least like top 3 in terms of scripted shows on the network, which is why I was actually really shocked that we ended up getting in fact, I think we were the number 2 scripted show when we got canceled. So I mean, the numbers were good, and they were always good. And see, at the first half of season 3, they kind of fell off, and then they kind of like regained. But I mean, the ratings were good. Initially the fan response was mixed, and it's basically one of those shows where I'm thinking big picture. So like I said earlier on, you introduce these characters and they're like almost like empty ciphers. They're like, oh, this is this character, and this is this character, and you think they're very much, the cliches. And so if there was one criticism that I saw more than anyone, it's like, oh, basically we've seen these characters before, and it's not really up to me to basically tell them, well, of course that's what is going to be the surprise in the show. I mean, the series is going to be full of surprises. It's going to be about upending expectations, and that's one of the things I want to do, is create surface impressions that you buy into early on, and then you're surprised later on. But it's kind of unfortunate, because I think there were some people who tuned in and they were like, meh, this show's not for me, because they just couldn't connect with the characters, and it's too bad. On the other hand, the fact that it was on Netflix was actually kind of helpful, in the fact that it would kind of roll into the next episode, and he always made a point of ending each episode with that holy crap moment that would hopefully compel them to watch the next one.
Plus, it was a little darker than a lot of what Sci-Fi was when it came out. They see your name, they think of Stargate, which had a kind of a lighter feel to it, even though there were tense moments, where this wasn't like that at all. This was more real. Yeah,
I mean, I think this one tonally fell in between Stargate Atlantis and Stargate Universe. It wasn't quite as dark as Stargate Universe. There's me with my. That's going to be my. I think I keep that whenever I do interviews. People are like, "Can you send me a headshot?" And I never have headshots, but I do have that, so I'm going to start sending them that. Thanks for the reminder.
Nice.
Yeah. There's Bubba. Bubba, by the way, was named after my pug, who sadly passed away. But there's a point where spoiler alert, where basically 3 says, he's named his gun Bubba, and his sidearm is Lulu. And Bubba was my pug, and Lulu was my French bulldog, who sadly also passed away at the end of last year. So they live on. In fact, actually, Anthony, I had a place in Vancouver, and he was in Vancouver for I think a week, and he actually stayed with us. And I have a picture of him holding Bubba and Lulu, the real Bubba and Lulu, like a gunfighter.
Is it safe for me to put the headphones back in? I heard spoiler alert and just ripped them out.
No, it's fine. Yes, you're good. Okay. It's not even that much of a spoiler.
If anyone goes back, they'll see me just go.
It's a very minor spoiler. So,
Joe, if this gun wasn't so long, it would be a great picture for your social media.
Yes, it would.
And since Joe has provided, are you okay for a few more minutes, Joe?
Yep.
Since Joe's provided some of these fantastic pictures from behind the scenes, I thought we could just go through a few more of them.
Oh, yeah, this is mint condition. That's me in mint condition. You'll notice basically I am in the 3-piece suit. When I roll into production, I'm always in my 3-piece suit. I've got the cufflinks. Cufflinks are a lot of fun. Basically, I have everything from Hydra to advanced idea mechanics to crossbows for Daryl from Walking Dead. So it's I've always like basically this falls into sort of what I was talking about. I like villains. I was always a big fan of James Bond villains, and once I was old enough and I was able to afford my own wardrobe, I was like, if I was a James Bond villain, how would I dress? And this is pretty much it. So whenever we roll into production, I would always step onto set with my fully geared up.
Oh, that's incredible.
That's a great
Crossbow
picture.
cufflinks. I'm into cufflinks. Those are that. I gotta find me a pair now that you mentioned it. I got some steampunk ones, all kind, but
Ooh.
that one I need.
Wow. Let me just remind everybody real quick before I get back to the pictures properly. Joe, you're going to be on Dial the Gate.
Yes.
Saturday.
Yes, Saturday. I'm doing a noon interview with David Reed, and we're going to be talking about the old Stargate days. So tune in. I didn't post the information because I wanted to just kind of focus on what we were doing tonight, but I will be posting information on my blog and on Twitter, and the link where you'll be able to check out the interviews, live interviews. So that's thank you for mentioning that. That's Saturday, noon Eastern time. Is it? No, hang on. Let me double check that.
Here, I think I might be able to find the post.
No, yeah, noon Eastern time.
Okay.
Yeah.
And the best thing, if you guys are not, anybody who's not following Joe on Twitter,
Shameful.
I'm going to put his link in right now. So if anybody's not following Joe, don't wait. Go follow him right now because later you'll just
come on over.
And he follows you
I'm
back.
disappointed in the anime pics, though.
The what?
I'm disappointed in the anime pics.
Yeah, this is what actually I'm doing. I started with movies. I did TV, and I'm moving into anime. And it's like we did like your top 3 sci-fi anime. I think your top 3 horror anime were the last ones. I think I might do maybe the post-apocalyptic anime next for tonight. We'll see. Are you an anime? What are your top 3?
Yeah, I wanted, you had the intro, and I thought the Ergo Proxy was so beautiful, and it got special mention.
But there are so many great anime intros, and for me, I just chose the ones that when I was watching, just kind of like, for me, just kind of stirred that that emotion. Like it's crazy, but for the ending theme, I chose Fruits Basket, which was kind of crazy. It's like not one that you would think I would like, but I just love that that end theme.
Well, that would have been Tokyo Ghoul for me, but
I clearly need to get into anime too.
You should.
Yes.
I think the closest I've come is Avatar: The Last Airbender.
Yeah.
Maybe the original Yu-Gi-Oh! That's like
It's
anime
close.
light. It doesn't count.
Only the Japanese do anime right.
It's true.
I don't know. Avatar: The Last Airbender was pretty good.
Joe, does Yodel have any input on her look in the on her hair?
Jodelle cosplays, and we ended up seeing pictures of Jodelle as she was heading over from Vancouver, and I think it was Jerry Firestone was like, we should color her hair like blue. And so we ended up trying different. She ended up actually cutting her hair. Apparently, she hadn't cut her hair since she was like 13. Just such long hair. I felt kind of bad, but she was like totally cool with it. And sorry, we tried different looks, different colors, and this was kind of the teal look was the one that we thought suited her best. So that is her hair color, her actually natural hair color. in character natural hair color, as we'll learn later in the season. But we'll get to that.
Wow. And we saw this briefly before in the background. I put it up while you guys were speaking, and it is. Adega's absolutely right. It is very Destiny looking. The shuttle, Destiny shuttle from SGU.
Yeah,
and
It looks like you could convert it into a Hot Wheels car.
you probably could.
Merchandise.
Now, do you want to talk? I mean, was there any? I know you spoke about it before. Was there any merchandise that of significant?
Sadly, no. There was no merchandise. As much as I would have loved to seen some merchandise, no.
So you're saying I can go on Etsy and
Yes.
maybe make some cool designs?
You probably could. If you actually make some cool cufflinks, I'd probably buy them from you.
There we go. You get a pair for free.
Well, no, I don't want to. No, it's your business. Oh, there's a green screen out the bridge. Yeah. And
Wow.
yeah, I very prefer the. I don't know if you have the photo of the starfield out the bridge as well, but we ended up. There's the outside of the bridge. There's a starfield, which I hated in season 1. So essentially, what they did was they ended up purchasing this, like special ordering this starfield from something like the United Arab Emirates, and it's like a starfield that's used in laser shows or light shows, and it looked terrible. It looked so fake. And I remember on Stargate Universe, all we did was we used a black, like velvet, like tarp, and we just put tinsel, and it looked way better than this. And so I remember, they couldn't figure out how to get the lights to stop blinking because all the instructions were in Arabic or Persian. It was just crazy. Wow. So this that initial starfield, I was not a fan of at all.
Oh, that's awful.
Yeah, you could get just a good hobbyist to get you a good starfield if you gave him enough money for the materials.
Yeah. Yeah, we ended up having like visual effects kind of like help us out there, but some of those situations where it didn't have to be that way, and the cheaper was actually better.
Now, I actually had a question with the green screen picture. I noticed that some of the green was reflecting inside the set. Mm-hmm. Did you have to edit out like the green lighting, or did it just kind of stay and you don't really notice it?
Yeah, for the most part, I don't think you notice it, but there's always, color correct is a stage in the post-production process where basically they deal with any of those aspects, or you can have, visual effects address it as well.
Cool.
Mm-hmm.
I just want to show. I just want to show a few more images, Joe, and sure. And we'll let you go because you've been so generous with your time.
No problem.
Because Joe provided us with some of these fabulous images, and guys, I know because of the time. I think another day we will maybe have a little bit of a free for all, and we
get more fan questions, reader questions.
Yeah.
I love chaos.
Great.
Can you tell us what we're looking at here? It's the sword scene, Joe?
Yeah, this is John Stead, our stunt coordinator, directing a second unit scene. In this one, this is the scene where 1 and 4 find the swords. 4 basically says, this way. You say instinctively, he's drawn to something. He's drawn to this training room. He's drawn to those swords. And 1 asks him, can you use, do you know how to use those things? And clearly he does. So again, this is muscle memory kicking in. He doesn't remember who he is, but his body remembers how to use those swords.
Yeah, and I love the terminology you use for him finding his little samurai getaway and finding the box. It is muscle memory, absolutely. And it's like very appropriate for him because he's very physical. That he would, yeah.
Again, and like his character is very much influenced, like I said, from anime and the whole sort of, Code Geass, swords and space subgenre that I love. And my wife is Japanese. I travel to Japan. I try to go every year, but obviously I didn't get to go this year. Check out Akihabara very much. I love kind of the anime angle.
Wow. Is there any other Katie or Dega, do you guys have any questions you want to add that we may have not?
Not until I see the next episode, that I'm sure I'll have a few.
Oh, great.
I just had one little one, but I don't want to. We've been here for a while. I don't want to keep it any longer.
No, go ahead.
It's you speak of Japan, Shorinji Kempo. I studied that for years under a fifth dan, and so martial arts. I watch these things and I pick them apart, and knowing. I don't know the actress, but knowing that you put 4 against the droid with the sword, and that was choreographed really cool. How long did that scene take, or did they catch on to it pretty quickly?
I mean,
just
those
that
scenes,
part of it.
It's not even like a much of like catching on, just because there's just so many moves and different angles. Usually, those scenes can take. Something like that would probably be, that sequence would be like half a day of shooting. There's a massive, well, I'm going to say massive, there's a huge throwdown between 2 characters in season 3 that took an entire day to shoot. We'll discuss that when the time comes. But again, that was like John Stead and 2 of our regulars, and it was quite a sequence.
And this is what Joe was talking about before about the
big
zero gravity.
Yeah.
That looks like so much fun.
Yeah, I remember basically this was kind of a second unit one, and there they go. We ended up shooting it. I think we came in on a Saturday to shoot that one. And of course, the danger is not really falling down and hitting the floor. The danger is the gun that Anthony is holding, because like when it goes down, you don't want it bouncing off the floor into your face, or holding it close to your face and and connecting with it. So that's one thing that John was like very cognizant of, like make sure you move the gun away from your body before we drop you.
Now, are they given any warning of when they're dropped, or is it?
Oh yeah, no, absolutely, they're given warning. Yeah.
So you didn't do like a Die Hard and drop them on 2.
No.
Yeah, definitely your weather studio needs one of these, Katie.
I'm going to have to ask him if it's in the budget. Right after the tornado vehicle, I want to get a tank. So that can come next. Maybe they'll go for that over the tank. Who knows?
Joe, I want to thank you. You've been so generous to be able to go through this with the creator of the show. Is probably one of the most amazing experiences as a fan that any of us have had. Thank you.
I thank you guys for keeping the flame alive and hopefully bringing a few more fans into the fold. And I love and hopefully like I said, as kind of the episodes continue, I'll see what I can do about maybe convincing a few friends to join us.
Wow,
that's more than exciting.
Just the fact that you're here is amazing in itself. And Joe, do you want? I just want to bring this up really quick. Do you want to mention anything about this Save the Gate petition that the Popcast guys have put out? Do you have? Are you involved?
I haven't even had a chance to look at it. I saw it actually this morning, and it's the podcast guys starting a petition, but really more than anything, trying to kind of prod MGM and to let them know that Stargate fans are still out there and very eager for a new Stargate series, not a reboot that would wipe out 20 years of established canon, but a show created by Brad Wright, who is the co-creator of SG-1, Atlantis, and Universe, and that's something that is in play already. So I mean, hopefully something comes of it. You never know in this industry what's going to go and what's not going to go. But I think new Stargate would be a no-brainer. So I don't really know. I'm not involved with the with this particular drive, but I fully support it. I always support fan initiatives. So if you're online, maybe seek them out and add your name to the list.
Yeah, and I posted here the link. Brian and Shane are two very nice guys, and their YouTube channel is called the Popcast Guys, and so we've just take a moment and their initiative is basically to get 2.5 million people signing. For example, I guess they felt that was the magic number that MGM wanted to see for the. Okay. Is that correct, Joe?
I don't know where they came up with that number.
Okay.
I can't speak to that.
Okay. Well, anyway, I just wanted to put that out there because it was just in the Twitter news yesterday, in the Twitter feeds. So if you have time, support this activity.
Mm-hmm. And I also want to thank the fans for showing up. I promise, next episode we'll get to some of your questions as well. I was a bit on a roll today.
Yeah, and me too. We were trying to. It's the first time we've done it. The first time. Hopefully, next time we'll get to more questions. And guys, thank you again. Any final words, Joe?
Thanks for tuning into episode 1. I can't wait to hear your reactions to episode 2. Let's do this again next week.
Awesome. Episode 2 next week, guys. Katie, thank you so much. Doctor and author Adega Outlaw. Thank you, Adega.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you all.
Thank you, Corrine, Ensign, Ricky, and Sith Lord, Time Prophet, Chuck Marble, Son of Red Shirt, Tony Rodriguez, Rapunzel, KK, everybody who has been in here.
There's so many people.
Yeah, Lurk a lot, Team Raza Europe. Ensign Ricky, ballpark. What does a set like that cost to make? Do you want to really quickly answer that, Joe?
Lightning round.
Which one? I mean, basically, I think the Raza we actually got for a steal at I think it was under $1 million. So
that price, you get to live in that. That's your new house.
Yeah. Less than $1 million. I mean, I forget actually how much. Like, certainly,
it only has one toilet.
Yeah, well, toilet.
At least it has a toilet.
Yeah.
Look at any of the Star Trek ships. They're questionable.
Oh, great. Thank you again, Joe. You guys all have a blessed night. Be safe, and get ready for Halloween. Halloween's coming up. Maybe you want to be your favorite
season.
Your favorite Dark Matter character for Halloween.
You do.
There you go.
Maybe we'll ask Joe those questions in the coming weeks.
He does have the costumes, he said.
I do.
Thank you, Joe. Thanks again. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
Bye, everyone.